Ja Morant has a serious problem. Over the years, Ja has really cemented himself as being one of the better younger players in the NBA and one of the better point guards in the NBA in general. But although Ja does so many different things well, I think there's one major issue that's plaguing his career and really keeping his team in the Memphis Grizzlies from winning an NBA championship. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicySports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Ja Morant was drafted with the number 2 overall selection during the 2019 NBA draft by the Memphis Grizzlies. And originally when Ja was being drafted, he was seen as a tremendous young talent. He was seen as a guy that had a tremendous ability as a point guard right away, but also had a great ability to improve over the years. Ja was an extremely athletic point guard that had a really nice ability to drive all the way to the basket and finish for himself, but also had a tremendous basketball IQ and understanding of how to get his teammates involved as well and get easy shots for them. He was doing a great job of that in college, but as soon as he came to the NBA, he was proving that he would have that same ability in the NBA as well. And honestly, even early on, Ja was showing a great ability to do all those different things he did well in college, but even better in the NBA. As in his rookie season, Ja averaged 17 points per game on 4 rebounds on 7.3 assists. Just really good numbers for anybody, but especially for a young point guard like Ja is. Because I talk about this in some of my videos, but whenever you talk about young players, a lot of times they do take some time to adjust to the NBA level. But especially when you talk about young point guards that are drafted highly, it's even more difficult for them to transition to the NBA flawlessly, because not only is the NBA a completely different game than college, but also having that pressure of playing well right away as a high overall draft pick just makes it that much more difficult to actually live up to those expectations. So the fact that Ja was not only living up to expectations right away, but honestly was playing even a little bit better was just incredible to see. But the great thing about Ja is not only was he great in his rookie season, every season following that he improved his game year after year until eventually we got to the point this season where he was averaging 26 points per game on 6 boards and 8.1 assists per game as well. Just phenomenal numbers, and at this point he's really cemented himself as being one of the better point guards in the NBA. And the great play that he's been showing individually has also made his team in the Memphis Grizzlies so much better as well. It seems like every single season now, the Grizzlies are either a top 3 or a top 4 seed in the Western Conference, and they are relatively competitive once it comes down to playoff time. And of course, the Grizzlies have built a really nice young core for themselves, but also their main guy in Ja Morant is a huge reason for why they've been able to have so much success. But although the Grizzlies have had a lot of success during the regular season, and maybe even during the earlier rounds in the playoffs, I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to win an NBA championship with Ja Morant being their main guy, at least at this point, and I think so for a couple different reasons. But the first and main reason that I want to touch upon is his lack of shooting ability. Now, as I mentioned before, Ja Morant does a phenomenal job at literally doing everything else very effectively. He has a pretty nice mid-range jump shot, he has a great floater, he has a tremendous ability to finish around the basket, either dunking over players or finishing around them with crafty layups or even finishing through contact. He has a great ability to facilitate for his teammates and just make everybody around him better. He even has a pretty nice ability to rebound. He literally does everything well out there. The only thing that he doesn't really do all that well out there is his 3-point jump shot. Now, this has been something that Ja has been improving upon, at least slightly over the years, but still at this point, I don't necessarily think it's good enough in order for the Grizzlies to win an NBA championship. And the reason why I think this is such a big issue, especially in playoff time and especially deep in the playoffs, is a lot of times during the regular season, you can get away with being the type of talent that Ja is without a 3-point jump shot and still be very effective. But in a 7-game playoff series, teams are very good at identifying your weaknesses and exposing them. So in the playoffs, teams would be much more likely to back off Ja and force him to shoot that 3-point jump shot. And if Ja isn't all that effective with that shot, he's just going to hurt his team and potentially lose his team the series. But even if he decides to drive to the basket, even though his defender is backing off him, it's just going to make it that much more difficult for him him to be effective at his main ability. So I really do think the lack of a 3-point jump shot is really going to hinder Ja, but also more specifically the Memphis Grizzlies as a whole in terms of having a ton of playoff success, and especially in terms of winning an NBA championship. Now I know in the past a lot of people, including myself, thought a guy like Giannis wouldn't be able to win a championship because he didn't have that 3-point jump shot in his game. And although we did actually see that hinder him somewhat early on, he was eventually able to win an NBA championship. So some of you may be asking, if Giannis was able to do it without a 3-point jump shot, why wouldn't Ja? Because although Ja isn't as good as Giannis is at this point, he is still very young and he's only going to improve as the years progress, but also at this point he is an extremely talented young player. Well, in my opinion, the reason why Giannis was eventually able to win an NBA championship was over the years he was able to improve that mid-range jump shot, and he eventually got it to a point where it was actually pretty consistent. And although he never had a consistent 3-point jump shot, I thought that mid-range jump shot really unlocked the rest of his game and gave him that ability to once again drive all the way to the basket and be extremely effective. So I think the major differences between Giannis and Ja is, first, obviously Giannis is almost 7 feet tall with a great wingspan, so he's going to be able to get away with a lot more than a small point guard like Ja Morant would. But even on top of that, Giannis was able to add an extremely effective mid-range game to really put his team over the top and eventually win a championship. Now I will say Ja has a decent mid-range jump shot at this point, but I really do think he's eventually just going to need to improve that 3-point jump shot. I think he would be able to get away with only that mid-range game if he was a little bit bigger, but I think based upon the position and size that he is, he's eventually going to need to improve that 3-point jump shot to take his team over the hump and eventually win a championship. Because if he's not able to do so, I still do think the Grizzlies are going to be relatively successful. I think they're going to be a top 4 or maybe even a top 3 seed in the West basically each and every season, and maybe they'll get passed around or maybe even 2, but they're never going to get all that far in the playoffs, and they're especially never going to win an NBA championship as long as Ja Morant doesn't improve that aspect of his game. Now another potential reason for why Ja Morant will never be able to win an NBA championship is due to his immaturity. Now I don't necessarily think this point is as significant as the first point, but I do think it's something worth talking about. Obviously we all know that Ja was suspended not too long ago for some actions he had off the court, and I do think at this point that shows a little bit of immaturity, and if he were to do something like that again, or if he were to get in trouble in the future, that obviously would negatively affect his team in the Memphis Grizzlies. But the reason why I don't think this is all that significant is I don't think Ja is going to do anything like this again, or at least all that much in the future. So I don't really think it's going to significantly affect the Memphis Grizzlies as a team. But overall, I do think the lack of a 3-point jump shot is a very big issue for Ja, and I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to win a championship if he doesn't address that issue. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Ja Morant's lack of a 3-point jump shot is a major issue, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.